So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to two very good friends of mine, Mikel Stous from Paratus Radio and the Todd, and they are going to give the natural beekeeping class. Let's welcome them to the stage.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for coming out to the festival, for being a preparedness-minded person. And so what we want to talk to you about today is what we've been doing over the last few months. So I've been interested in bees before, but it really didn't take off until I went to the Midwest Preparation Festival in Marshfield, Missouri, or the Homesteader Expo in Marshfield, Missouri, and saw Dr. Leo Sharashkin talk about his system of doing something a little bit different. So, let's just roll into it. So I have a question for you: is our bee population declining? And the answer is it depends on who you ask. The number of hives have increased, but the number of beekeepers has decreased. Well, what does this mean? It means that honey production is more centralized and more industrialized. So think of the cow operations, the confined CAFO operations, where we have less and less ranchers, but we have more and more big ag. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to reverse that trend. You know, just like we don't like big government, we want to decentralize government. We don't want big food, we want decentralized food, right? Both as preparation-minded people, but just as freedom-loving people as well. So we need to do things a little different way. So Todd has a story for you.
I like telling stories. I don't know if everybody knows that, but once in a while I'll tell a story. But a while back, I was, it was that's how she told me, but I'll just kind of go with this. One lady was sitting there and she was making a ham dinner. So she had a ham roast, and end of each of the ham roast, she cut it off. And she stuck it in the oven and cut it there. Well, her daughter was looking at her, sitting there, and says, "Why are you cutting the end off that ham roast?" And she sat there and says, "Well, I don't know. My mom always told me to cut the ends off the ham roast. And I saw her doing it, so I just did it." And then she says, "I'll have to call my mom." So she calls her mom, says, "Hey, Mom." And her mom says, "Yes." And she says, when we cook hams, you always cut the ends off the ham. Why'd you do that?" And she sits there and says, "Well, that's the only way I could get it fit in the oven." So I guess what it comes down into is, as we're talking about trying to figure a better way of doing like beekeeping and stuff, this is a vertical hive or Langstroth hive, and that's like a laying hive or a horizontal hive. And in this area, that is actually probably the better style, but this has been the standard for a long time. The vertical hive. You go everywhere, you see vertical hives everywhere. And the reason they call it vertical hives is essentially you just keep building them up and put more sections in there. So I think at that point I'm going to go, at this point I'm going to give it back to Michael. He's going to talk a little bit more about the laying style hive.
So what we're looking at is we're trying to do something that's easier on the bees and easier on the beekeepers. So when I took Dr. Leo's class, he said that why the size of these hives? Well, back in the day, the only boxes that were mass produced were champagne boxes that fit 4 on a pallet on inside a railway car. So these boxes are not better for the bees. They're not better for the beekeeper. I'm part of the gray hair now. So if I'm trying to lift these 70-pound boxes, that's a bad angle on my back. So why don't we do something that's easier on the bees, easier on the beekeepers? You actually have a list of things that you wanted to compare the two.
Yeah, one thing to look at when you look at the different options, like I said, you got the Lane's hive there, and you got like the vertical system here. Now, on the vertical system, which is really, bees will typically kind of grow vertical because the heat goes up, so they will go vertical, but that's more of an issue in like tropical climates. When you get to the cooler climates like ours, actually the horizontal is better. The The benefit to this one, if you get bees are growing, you just add another section, you keep getting it taller, and that's well. But they're not typically very well insulated, and they're harder to split a hive, and we'll be talking about that later on. So there's some benefits to having that style, but they are more common. There's a lot more. You go around, drive around, you'll see these things, on the edge of a cornfield, and you'll see like 2 or 3 sections like this, maybe 3 sections, and you'll see them on the side with it, because this has been kind of a standard for a long, long time.
When you take a beekeeping class, you're taught this style. You're not taught any other styles.
Now, on the horizontal hive, or the laying style there, if you look at that one, first of all, it's a lot wider. The frames, you can see the standard frame. This is a standard section here, so this has got the standard frame inside of it. But if you look at them,
is that one hive or is that 3 hives on the front here?
That's one hive.
that's one hive.
You just got 3 openings on it.
Yeah.
But I'll take this one here. This one's not got very much comb on it. But this is a hive I had, and then if you look at the style, see one's deeper, and so basically you got the height of this one already that matches a lot with the natural beekeeping. Where in this one you've got to add sections. They got sections that are about half the size or full size, and you got different things about excluding queen. We can talk about that later. But this was the old standard system. But that one there, see, it's insulated. Actually, in that thing, when we build those, we put like a natural insulation on there. That's got wool insulation. That's why if you look at the walls, you realize they're about that thick, like 1.5 inches thick. But we stuff it full with wool insulation, and on the bottom's got wool insulation, the side's got wool insulation. The only part that doesn't have insulation is the top and the hood. But it mimics, and more mimics, like your trees. Because bees will typically, they'll find a tree and they'll build a hive inside of a tree and that kind of stuff. And the tree, the wood and the tree and the bark and stuff, insulation, which that one kind of mimics. Also, another reason why you would look at this hive here is actually, you can actually easily split a hive and actually build a couple different queens with this system, with the divider system, where it's really hard to do this. Basically, you're kind of stuck with trying to catch a swarm and then putting it in a thing like this. So
It's all working height too. So if you're disabled or in a wheelchair, it's easier for you to keep being a beekeeper with this, because this is actually the height of the actual stand and the working height. So
How do you separate the queen from?
we'll talk about that a little bit later, right? Yep. But there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. We're going to leave some time at the end, so we'll just to make it easier, we're going to ask your questions at the end, not to be mean. But one thing one of the reasons I'm going to this style here is last winter, this is a beehive that I had, and it was doing great. It was doing fantastic. I mean, you can pull out the things, and I got a lot of, you guys can take a look at it, but they were full of comb and full of honey. I tried to lift this thing up, and I could barely lift the thing up because like 80 pounds was almost full of honey. But it wasn't insulated. I try to keep it maintained, but what happened is the bees, every one of these things, there's no weight in this at all now. I mean, I can lift this thing up easy. They ate all the honey up. They ran out of food, so they ended up dying. Now, with natural beekeeping, you want your bees to be kind of self-reliant. You don't want to have to rely on giving them like sugar water or sugar. Some people, when they give you bee classes, they say, hey, you help the bees get through the winter, you got to give them sugar and stuff. Well, if they were insulated, I personally feel if my bees were insulated, they would have survived the winter. So if I had a system like that, it's insulated, because they want to maintain like about a 95-degree temperature. Well, there's nothing to keep the heat in. So with that system there, it's more natural, especially wintertime, your bees will last longer, and then that's one of the reasons I'm switching over to that style hive. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about building hives. What it is when we build these hives, there's some instructions, and I believe they're over. Do you have it with you?
No, I'll go grab it.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay.
If you go over there to Mikel's tent, there's a little thing with some QR codes on it. And Dr. Leo has done, he's trying to build the bee community. So what he's done is he's given, basically, if you go on his website, you get plans for making the swarms. This is a swarm trap. And he also has plans for building those. He's got a couple different styles. That's the one he feels is the best style, so that's the one we're making. But you can go on that website and you get free plants. And right now it takes 4 sheets of plywood to make 3 of those, along with some of the other stuff. But 4 sheets of plywood, cut all down, you can make 3 of those hives with 4 sheets of standard, 4 standard sheets of plywood. So, this one here, I got this on Amazon. It cost me, I think, about $250. And if you build those things like that, and you can sell it to bigger hives, got more stuff on it, that thing there, our cost when we do this community building, which Michael's going to talk about a little bit, that's about $270. So it's not much different to that hive, but in this area where you have the cold winters, that is actually a better style. Now, if you're living down in Florida or something like that, this might be the better system. But up where we're at, we have cold winters, that's the better system. At this point, I'm going to let Michael talk about some of the community and stuff that we're trying to do to promote
Yeah,
bees.
so what we're,
I had a quick question about this. You're talking about how to keep it warm and everything, but we have really hot and wet summers too. How do you keep that cool?
the insulation also helps with the cooling as well. So you'll see that the bees don't beard as much on the outside of this kind of hive because of the insulation. So on this one, you'll see them all gathering on the outside trying to cool off.
Yeah, have you ever seen bearding? Does anybody here understand what a bearding is when a beehive beards? Okay, when a beehive beards, I see some people shaking their heads. What is, you see on this one here, and I actually saw it quite a bit last summer, you'll have a bunch of bees and they're just kind of be hanging down. Looks like actually like a big beard, kind of like, well, Michael had a bigger beard earlier, but you had a big beard that actually looks like a beard kind of hanging down. And the bees, what they're doing is they're trying to get air into the hive, move air, so that's why they're doing it. They're just doing it to cool down, and they can cool off and go back and help the queen, because they want to maintain that like 95-degree temperature inside there. But even on the hot days, sometimes you hit 100 degrees, but 95 degrees, you're kind of even. But since that's insulated, you're not going to get the temperature, because when it gets cool outside, they just don't have any insulation, so it's going to change. So at nighttime, they're going to be trying to warm them up. In the daytime, they won't have to. They'll actually be trying to cool off, so they're spending a lot of extra energy. Well, that system there, it's more consistent. It's like a well-insulated house. If you have a well-insulated house and you leave for a couple of days and you come back, a lot of times the temperature doesn't change much. And that's kind of the same principle there.
And dehydrated.
Would you put these in the shade or the sun in this climate?
It could be either.
Okay.
Could be either. So typically, beekeepers like to keep it in the sun, and with like either a southern exposure, something like that. So, and that seems to work fine with these. 2 points on the heat is that this lid is just an attic, just like our house attic. So our house is insulated, but then the attic is open for it to breathe. So Todd's going to show you that the bees do not go up in the attic. In here, there's
vent holes right here.
The frames are open so the bees can go up. With this, if you look, here, can you open up this trap? If you look, the frames all touch each other so the bees do not go up into the top. So that's quite a bit of difference. So in here, the bees do not go up, but there is also ventilation. The second thing is that in southern climates, Dr. Leo recommends a 4th entrance. That's just for ventilation up top, so that way there is that better airflow.
If it's warm and stuff, the bees are working. You've got honey in there that needs to be
Yeah.
water in it, and the water evaporates. It's
Yeah.
going to be in the hive also.
You're always worried about humidity and mold and things like that. So you do want to have the airflow through there.
Water the water evaporates. It's cooling.
Correct.
Evaporating.
Correct. Yeah. So what we're doing is, Dr. Leo wants more bees, more beekeepers. That's why he publishes his plans. So I was like, well, hey, if I'm the only beekeeper that's doing this, that does not help me much. So my idea was to start doing these community builds. The idea of the community builds is that if you come and help donate your labor to help building other people's hives, then you get your name on the list to actually get a hive at cost. So we're not making any money off of this. We're just trying to get more bees, more beekeepers. So our costs for the traps are $75 for the first trap and then $55 for the next 2 or 3. For the hives, our cost is around $270. And actually, our community has donated a fair amount of money to back to Dr. Leo. So every trap gets, we give him a $5 donation, and every hive we give him a $10 donation. And so he emailed me asking me, "Did you mean to give me this much money?" And I was like, "Yes. You know, our community has raised this money to give back to you, value for value. Thank you for what you've done." And so he told me that it was the 3rd largest donation that he's received. So he was very impressed with that and thankful. So, but with this, you know, we want to generate community, right? So if I have the same kind of traps and I trap an extra swarm, and Todd needs a swarm, then I can actually take my swarm trap and put it into his hive, right? So it's about helping build our community.
And one thing when you start traps like this one here, if you look at, I've got some different style, you know, boards, I guess you could call. I mean, you get kind of stuck, but I got different styles in here because when you get a trap, and these are kind of standard, is if you catch the bees in this trap later on, when you get to the thing, you just take the whole thing out with the bees in it and just stick it right into the other one, so they all match. So they're kind of universal, which makes it kind of nice for, you know, keeping bees and moving bees. I don't know how many people knew that, but you just take those. You just take all this and just transfer it right into the
Now, if you have a lot of the Langstroth equipment like this, Dr. Leo even has plans to make Langstroth traps. So there is a group in Kansas City that does natural beekeeping. They catch local bees. And they don't feed sugar and they don't medicate them, but they keep them in the Langstroth hives. So for me, I work hard at being lazy. So let's do something, like I said, that's easier on the bees, easier on the beekeepers.
And one thing I also want to mention on this one here, there's a couple of jigs we've got here, and the reason why we brought those up here to show everybody is we make these to help make the frames. And this is just a thing. And these plans are also available on the website. So if you got plans for all these, making these different jigs and that kind of stuff. So everything you need to make them is available, which is nice, and it helps promotes the community, because that's one thing. As preppers or homesteaders, community is very important. Yeah. The same thing with the beekeeping thing. Somebody gets a swarm and wants to move it, to another place. It's great. Now, one thing about moving, I'm going to mention about the bees, is when you get a swarm, or if you get a hive and you want to split and you want to move them, the rule of thumb is either 10 feet or 3 miles. Because if you get like just if you move it like 100 feet away, they won't go to that hive. They'll always go back to where they want to go. So you got to get like about 3 miles away from where you catch them, or if you want to just split a hive or move a hive, it's like 3 miles, because then it's far enough away they can't find their existing area. They kind of get
it resets their GPS.
Yeah.
Right. So you know where you have home on your car or phone GPS, right? So the bees have that internal guidance system, and so you either have to move them 10 feet every week or two, or move them 3 miles away for a few weeks and then back. There is a third way of, I don't want to experiment with it right now because I don't have enough hives, but there's a third way that I heard about, is that if you put a lot of brush in front of the new location, the bees will come out and go, oh wait, I'm in a new environment, I need to take a reorientation flight. So, but there are a few ways that you can deal with this.
I think, guys, why don't you talk about the management?
Okay, all right, sounds good. So, as we said before, natural beekeeping involves catching local bees. We don't want to buy packages. That's not recommended, because when you buy a package of bees, that's a queen and about 3,000 bees, or 3 pounds of bees. But it's coming from Georgia, it's coming from Arizona, it's coming from California. the problem with that is that it's not a local bee. So if I an orange tree and I brought it here to plant in Kansas, it's going to need a lot of support. It's going to need a greenhouse around it. It's going to need warmth. It's going to need a lot more sun, things like that. So why not use local plants, local animals, local bees to do your hive? Because the queen has to start making the babies. Was it 6 weeks ahead of when the nectar flow happens? So she needs to know 6 weeks ahead of when that nectar flow starts, of when all the trees and plants and flowers and things like that are starting to produce that nectar that they want. So also, they call it the dearth, is when the nectar flow stops in the fall or in the summer. And so if your queen is making bees way ahead of the nectar flow and way after the dearth, that means you have more mouths to feed and less honey. And you get into a situation like like happened to the Todd, where his bees ran out of food. In that case, feeding it organic sugar is acceptable, but let's do better moving forward, right? Let's move to a raw wool insulated hive that's easier to manage. So let's get into the management of it. So how do you catch local bees? So there's a few things that are unique about these traps. One is that it's about 10 gallons of size. So that's about the right size that the scout bees look for. The next thing that we want to place, how do we place it? We want to place it on a tree line, visible, probably with a tree like with big branches, because bees actually see patterns better than they see colors. Now when they're flying around, looking at the flowers, they switch to color vision. But when they're flying, their brains can't handle color vision and flying fast and avoiding obstacles. So they switch to black and white vision, so they see patterns. So in a crook of a tree, about 10 to 15 feet up is the best spot for it. So the scout bees will come in, they'll actually measure the box, the size of it, then they'll say, oh, if the size is good, then they come out and they'll actually do spirals down to the ground to actually measure how high. So Dr. Leo jokes about, rereading Winnie the Pooh. He says there's a lot of natural beekeeping tips in Winnie the Pooh. So and it's funny because he has a thick Russian accent. It's pretty funny. So we have the right size, we have the right height. The next thing is baiting it. So what we do is we use, where do we go? It was here. Oh, over here. Okay. Right on. So what we do is we use Propolis, which is the resin that the bees collect from trees. It's tree sap and things like that. And I love the smell of this. So if you come over, take a good whiff of that. But what you do is you heat this up and then you rub it on the inside of the box. So bees hate cracks, so they caulk everything. That's why you see all this propolis and things on top, because they hate gaps and cracks, and they just want to fill it. So, and that's called propolis, and so we put the scent of the propolis inside. The next thing is that we use lemongrass oil. Now we don't want to do it. We don't want to put the lemongrass oil on like a junior high boy with cologne. Just way too much. So we have these little diffuser vials, and if you fill it halfway with lemongrass oil, then it'll last for about 6 months, and it gives off about the right amount of lemongrass oil scent for you to bait the hive. And if you want a few of these, I actually have extra. So if you want to try your hand at it, then feel free and come by. Let's see. Yeah, let's do this. So say we catch a swarm
What's the best time of the year to put your trap out?
Now, but the swarms will happen all throughout, even to September. So I would recommend that you just keep the swarm traps up and just keep an eye on them. So what you do is you actually weigh it before you put it up, and then you weigh it after, and then you get an estimate of how many bees are in it. So typically it's about 1,000 bees per pound, and Dr. Leo had a 9-pound swarm. So 9 pounds of swarm, that's equivalent to three nukes or 3 packages, and that would be about $450 of bees that he got.
More than that.
More than that?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm behind the times. So.
It's about $3.50 for a package now. You're lucky.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, let's catch local bees.
And that's the reason why you build community. You build community.
Exactly.
People are we're trying to promote beekeeping, so you put these swarms up there, or if you want to split one to increase your side, or just help other people out.
Yeah, exactly. So if I had this at your place and you caught an extra, then I'd just give you frames back and we'd swap out, right? So yeah, it's about helping each other, right? There's no lone wolf prepper. So.
Oh, and the wild bees are just, like you said, they're just so much better, and they thrive. It's just so much better.
Yeah, yeah.
We've lost so many bees because they're just not.
Because we have to support them,
Yeah.
and they come needing support.
Right.
Okay. I always heard that there's not a single local bee in North America that's
Correct.
a honeybee.
Correct.
Right.
So you're talking about honeybees that have like escaped and naturalized, and they live here, and they're
They've
acclimated to here. But,
Yes.
But they're when you're saying native bees, and I'm like, wait a minute, I
No,
thought we didn't
Roger
have any.
That makes
Yeah, you are correct. And the bees are brought over, I think, with the Spaniards and that kind of stuff for honey. They actually aren't natural to the United States or to North America, but it's just like horses. Well, I don't think horses were natural here either. But you see all the cowboy and Indian movies with horses. They've acclimated. They become part of the community, whether we wanted them or not. Same thing with, you can even go to the other extreme of, like in the lakes, they got those zebra mussels, which are, once again, they're not native, but they've taken over the lakes.
Yeah.
But the bees are actually been very helpful because they help, not besides providing honey, which is a natural sugar. And I don't know if anybody knows it, but if you use honey instead of sugar, if you use about 2/3 of a cup for every cup, 2/3. So actually, honey is sweeter than actual sugar. So that's just if you have recipes you want to try it sometime, think of it that way. And I know we kind of cut you off, Terry, earlier. You had a question. We're kind of taking questions now as we go.
Yeah.
Not to be mean, but
Yeah.
feel free to ask.
Yeah. You had a
Got
question
those,
before.
what do you call them, in there, how do you keep when you're gonna harvest honey, you gotta find the queen, you gotta find the,
No. No, don't have to find the queen.
well, you don't wanna pull her out.
Well, I mean, you take a look. I mean, you don't want to.
You don't have to find her, you have to make sure she's
That
not
she's
on
not
it.
on
You
it
remove-
when you- right.
You don't wanna remove, babies.
Well, correct.
And
Correct.
if they're all,
Correct.
if they're all the same level.
And we'll talk about that here in a
Okay.
second. So
I'll shut
so
up again.
you're good. You're good, Terry.
No, that's fine, Terry. That's
Great
fine.
questions.
And I just felt kind of bad because we've been taking questions. I kind of cut you off, so I said, all right, I better ask.
Everybody
now.
can
I don't
ask
want-
questions, but Terry. No, just kidding.
I had it at work, everybody wear coveralls except me.
Yeah. Roger that. Okay, so we weighed the trap, we put it up in the tree. We noticed that there's bees coming in and out. Then what we do at night when they're all back in, we close it, and then we probably put a strap around it, because if you drop a box of bees from a height,
They're gonna like you.
they're not going to like you very much. So yeah, so put a strap on it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to bring it down. Oh, this split's not fitting quite right. We'll have to adjust that. Go ahead. Yeah, just put it on top. So what we do is then we'll put it on top of the hive for a time, because I don't want to do too many moves at once, right? So of course you open this back up. And because it's a smaller swarm, you probably want to do it on the not an open because it's not a birdhouse, it's a bee house. So we'll leave it on the mouse guard there. And so then you let them sit for a few days, getting acclimated to the current location. Then when you're ready to put them in the hive, we'll do this. You just want to hold the mic for me?
Sure.
So what we'll do is,
Another night job?
no, you can do this during the day.
Okay.
So actually, the transfer you want to do during the day because most of the bees are gone.
Okay.
So we'll set it down.
And but one thing you can do is you can go like on Amazon and that kind of stuff. If you're worried about bees or you're allergic to bee stings, you can get like a bee suit, and they don't, maybe 30, 40 bucks. I think I got one on. I got a couple of them for about 40 bucks. The only thing is you want to make sure where your gloves and stuff go. Sometimes you got to make sure they got either elastic or something because they will get up your sleeves. And same thing around your
pants.
feet, around your pants.
Ask me how I know.
So, I've been lucky. I've messed with these bees all the time, and I know one thing you were saying about the queen. When you're checking these things, when I was checking, I'd be going like this because actually, when I first got this, the queen left. I had a swarm leave, and then I was like going, what's going on? There was some moving it out, and if you look on some of these, let me get a better one here. When you start looking, they'll have like caps where the brood's at.
Right.
And then the queen, they'll be extending out like another like quarter inch or so. They'll be like a dome. And that's how you tell a queen. And what I noticed is when we did it, we had like 3 queen cells. And they hadn't hatched yet, but the workers that stayed behind were getting ready to make a new queen. So the next thing you know, my hive was going good. A couple weeks later, next thing you know, I started seeing more activity, more bees, and doing really good. So just because they swarm doesn't mean you lost your hive. It could be that, because the queen left, and sometimes when they go crowded, they'll do that. But when workers realize they don't have a queen, they will start making a queen because they have what they call royal jelly, and every bee gets a little bit of royal jelly. But for the queen, they just give them a lot of royal jelly, so that makes it kind of come out and make it a bigger cell. So I'm sorry, kind of getting a little off track
No,
here.
you're good. You're good. So what we're going to do is we're going to move these hives, move the frames.
Can you guys hear him all right? I know he's moving around, so I'm trying to keep the mic on him, but it's not working too well.
Do they have full comb on there? Or you just
Yeah, so there'll be more comb. There'll be more comb on this than this. This is just the starter for them to, yeah.
You put a starter on there to kind of help them get going. And one thing I've noticed, if I look at that stuff there, you have some of these, while he's moving those around, this is the kit I got from Amazon. And for some reason, they like building their stuff more so, because if you start looking at some of these other ones, like this one's got wires, kind of like what we have. And for some reason, they build that a lot better than just a plastic starter. Don't ask me why, but I would figure they got a base to start off, but they seem to do better on this kind of frame with the wires and stuff, which is what we've done is it takes a lot more energy for a bee to make wax. It takes a ton of their resources to make wax.
8 times the honey.
Yeah,
or
8
times
times.
the nectar.
So you give them a starter, some wax, and what we've been doing is getting some natural beeswax and giving them a start so they have a place to really start. But if you notice, there's no plastic or anything on there.
So they will go ahead and build that comb straight as long as you're. if it's
This
already
needs to be
lined up
level.
there.
Yeah.
I know.
That needs to be level.
If you had the comb already there, they would have it just be so wrong. It's already there, and even if it wasn't level, it'd be all right.
Yeah.
But if you look at this one, they kind of start at the top and go down. That's one thing I noticed. You kind of, and this one here, this is like, I just, if anybody wants to take a look, we'll keep this stuff up for a little while after the presentation if you want to take a look at some stuff.
So I know you can't see this for this angle. So what we do is we don't give them the entire space. We don't give them entire space. What we do is we have a divider board that then restricts them to those frames. And so I have 6 frames in here and then a divider board. And then basically all you do during the spring and summer is you feel, is it 95 degrees? Yes. Then they're making babies. So, and that's what we want. That's all the check we do. And then you take a peek. Oh, they're building out on the last frame. Let's add a few more frames in. And we just do that throughout the year. All right, so we added a few more frames. You know, a couple weeks later, you know, oh look, it's warm, 95 degrees. Okay, they're making babies. All right, they're building out on those frames. And this is our progression all through the year. We just keep adding frames. So what happens is that this goes right to your question, Terry. So what happens is that the horizontal hives behave differently than the vertical hives. So in fact, if you look at the Egyptian hieroglyphics, Egyptians used horizontal hives for doing bees. So they had they had straw that they woven, and then the entrance of the beehive was on one end, and then they had a plug on the other end. And what they would do is they would unplug the honey side, extract the honey, and then put it. So there's an air-steam feature here in that typically, let's see if we can't. I'm thinking we can kind of tilt it up a little bit. Cool. So thanks. So what happens is, if this is our entrance here, so this first frame is typically going to be pollen and honey. The next few frames are going to be brood. The next few frames are going to be pollen and honey. And then from there, it's going to be just honey. So you don't need to actually use a queen excluder because the queen's going to stay by the entrance. So what they're going to do is, over time, we keep adding frames just as much as they need. So with the vertical hives, when we add frames, we add 10 more frames at a time. So we're adding a lot of room for them. But with here, we add just what they need. Is it warm? Yes, they're making babies. Then we just we add frames. So now at this point, say we're in the fall now. What we can do then is we do a full inspection. So notice I did not do a full inspection throughout the year. I just did a check engine light. Is it warm? Now if it's cold, that means there's a problem and you're going to have to investigate further. But if it's warm, if it's 95 degrees, you don't have to worry about any of that. Let the bees be bees. And then just check, oh, they need more room, and just keep adding. So now here's some of the cool features of this kind of hive. Let's set it back down. So if you notice, there's 3 entrances. So the reason for that, it helps with beehive management. So if this is so if they're going really good, open it all the way. That way they have maximum room. On this hive,
Actually, on this one, this is a feature of the vertical hive, because when you first get a beehive, they have to protect. You got guard bees, and they protect the entrance. So when they first start, you want to usually kind of keep a smaller hole, but as they get going bigger and a shorter hive, you can increase the size. And the way this one, you just turn it, and you get a bigger hole. You can even take it all together if you got a really strong hive, and you got 3 sections.
So with this, at this point, of course, we'll have a full opening here. But there's an issue. Now that we have so many bees coming in and out, the colony is going to feel pressure to swarm because of all of that traffic over here. So it's just not part of their natural progression. Oh, we're running out of room, we need to swarm. Well, the problem is that I know they don't need to swarm because they got so much more room over here. So how do you how do you alleviate that issue where they feel like they need to swarm? What you can do is now you can open up the second entrance, close the first. So now when they're gathering, the workers are gathering nectar, they're coming in over here. That alleviates the pressure in the brood area. So, so that will prevent them from swarming because they still have more room here. Now, if this is a very, very strong hive, then we can actually split the hive at this point. But I'll talk about that in a second. So when we go back to, so say we're ready to collect honey in the fall and do our fall inspection. What we do is we go back through the whole hive. Now this is the only time that you do like a full inspection unless you sense there's a problem. You go back through and you check each one, you look for that queen, and then so this is, the first one's going to be pollen and honey, and then the next 4 or 5 frames, they're going to be brood frames. Then pollen and honey again. So remember, pollen is their protein. And then the rest of these are going to be honey, just naturally. So what we do is, they only need so much because we have an insulated hive. We only need the pollen and honey. Okay. We need. Oh, we're fall inspection. So yeah, you're good. Like 4 frames of brood.
Got a question. When you open up that second door, so you close the first one, is that going to let the queen bee moving down?
Yes. So one of the things you can do is the queen is going to move more toward the entrance, but that's going to take time for her to do that. So that's a good technique if you want to move her off of that old dark comb onto fresher comb. So that's one of the side benefits of that. So good eye. Good question. No, just one at a time. So because it's almost too much, they'd have to devote too many guards to protect from robbers. So you either want to have them if it's a small colony, you want to make the mouse use the mouse excluder, the mouse whatever. But if it's a strong hive, then you use the full opening. So if you remember, here, let's do this. So after we do a full inspection, we're gonna remove the honey. But what I don't want to do is remove the honey that they need. So because I want to let the bees be bees, I'm not going to be a greedy landlord. So what we're going to do here is, let's do this again. I'll hold it. Yeah. So I have this divided out here. So this first one's going to be pollen and honey. Then you're going to have, say, like 4 frames of brood. And then you're going to have 2 frames of pollen and honey and possibly honey. That is all they need to overwinter. They don't need any more of this. Now, it's part of their natural cycle for them just to fill up as much as possible. And then when they're honey bound, they leave. Then some kind of animal or something comes in, cleans out the hive, and that opens it up for a new colony to move back in. So it's part of the natural cycle. But ethically, for the vegans out there, they will never touch. They'll never touch this honey. So this is ethically, you can actually take this honey. And then what we do is, of course, we move it all back. So these are the frames of honey that we're going to take. And then what we do is, we do 2 things for the fall. One is that we flip the divider open. If you notice, there's standoffs. Oh, yeah, move that honey, move those frames back. Todd's too excited. He's thinking about all that honey. So what we do is, notice it's sticking up a little bit more, and there's a gap underneath. The second thing we do is we put a raw wool pillow on top. So now they're insulated on 5 sides. And so that requires them to use less honey to overwinter. So what happens when the bees eat honey? Well, it does 2 things. It creates carbon dioxide and it creates more humidity, right? So you don't want these frames in here over winter. We actually want to take these out and process them. Now when we process them, what we're going to do is we're going to decap them and then we're going to spin them out. Now you're going to need to have a different spinner for these kinds of frames, because the spinner for those frames only do those frames. Dr. Leo sells 2 different kinds of extractors. One's a spinner. It handles these frames, it handles those frames, and it handles data frames as well. So you actually get a little bit more versatility out of it, right? So what we do is we decap, we spin it out. The comb, remember the comb takes 8 times the nectar to build than honey. So we want to keep the comb as much as possible. So what do? We put these in the freezer for 48 hours to kill off the wax moth eggs. They're technically butterflies, so butterfly eggs. And then we can put them back into the trap and close it, and that'll be good for next spring. So as long as nothing gets into it, it'll be good for next spring. So we have our divider board turned over. When they eat the honey, it creates carbon dioxide, it creates humidity. What happens is, remember, this is just an attic. And so when the bees, what they do is they backfill the top with honey and then they bunk bed in the bottom. And then throughout the winter, what they do is their body heat warms the honey and they slowly eat their way up. So with the vertical hives, they're going to have to festoon or do something to get up into that second box. Of course, that's a whole lot of space for them to try to heat with their body heat. But with this, because it's insulated on 5 sides, and it has this thick insulating board here, what happens is that heat is trapped into the top, and so they need less to create less heat. So that naturally stays warmer, right? Because the heat rises. Well, what happens with the humidity? Well, the humidity falls. In a tree, what they would do is that humidity would fall and the moisture would fall, and the tree would naturally absorb that moisture. But here we have no way of getting the moisture out. That's why we flip this divider board open over, so that the humidity can come out from underneath into the attic. So, yeah. So the humidity will then come through out into the attic and escape. And that way the hive will stay warm and dry.
Why can't it come out with a third over?
Because there's no, well, the only entrance would be that entry hole. And so the question was, why can't the humidity come out the other way? It can, but not as efficient. I think the better way is to have that gap so that there's actually a ventilation through. Just like our houses are insulated, and then we have the roof is uninsulated, and it has all that ventilation with the what do you call them? Soffits and things. Thank you. Just like our houses, this will help the bees handle overwinter better. Especially, you know, we get down to minus 40 here. You know, so and so then what happens when we next spring? What happens next spring is that we do a full inspection. We take off the pillow, we flip it back over. Now, if it's a wet spring and it's raining, they can't fly. So what do? Do we feed them sugar? No. What we do is that maybe we kept an extra frame of honey of theirs spare. We froze it for 48 hours and kept it in the trap. Now we see, oh, it's a really wet spring, it's a wet week, they're trying to get out. So what we can do is we can add that frame back in, give them the food that they want. We do not feed them commercial honey. You know, if you have to feed them sugar, feed them organic sugar. That way there's less pesticide load and things like that on it. But the best thing for them is feeding them back their own honey. Yeah. So after you spin it, after you spin those other frames out that you store, you can lay them by the hive. They'll clean them. They'll dry them, and then you freeze it, and then store it.
I was gonna say, bees are kind of funny because sometimes you'll get bees and they'll find another hive, and they'll go in there and they'll take all the honey out of the other hive and take it back to their hive. It's less work they do. It's easier to steal than to make. Not that we want to steal, but I'd rather make. But yeah, sometimes that'll happen. You'll get bees that get like another hive that will come in there and they'll basically ruin an existing hive. They'll take all the food away from them.
All right, so let's do a split one.
Okay.
Set back down.
I could do. Why don't we just do it like this? Thing and see what you're doing.
Okay.
Todd,
Yeah.
what about feeding them like unrefined honey from somebody else?
The thing, okay, with when we stay natural, we're trying to keep, because a lot of times some of these people will put different kind of insecticides and that kind of stuff for the bees. So you don't know what, even though it's, unless you know the source of the honey, I'd say no. Unless you absolutely know the source. Let's say.
But if I've got a friend that is in the same mindset as me,
Right.
they've got bees and mine are having problems, and I'm needing to feed,
Yes.
get honey from them, unrefined or unprocessed.
Right. Yeah. Well, then you know the source of the honey, because sometimes the thing with anything commercially processed, you don't know what they're going to put into it. And a lot of times because to get rid of some of the bee mites and that kind of stuff, they've got other stuff they spray on the things. We're trying to stay as natural as we can, because you stay natural, I think that will actually give you stronger, better bee. And then if you don't have the insecticides, the other thing is that when they start getting all the insecticides, it'll eventually get to us too, because then you can't get out of the honey. So.
Yeah, Dr. Leo actually had where he fed commercial honey to his beehives and introduced European foul brood into one of his hives. So it actually came through, and he's had a hard time getting rid of it now because of that. But
yeah, definitely know the source if you want to use it. But yeah.
So,
I'm Terry's neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not, but I am.
But yeah.
I know what he's been doing, he knows what I've been doing, we basically work
Yeah.
together.
And if you have the same frames, that's great, because then you just borrow a frame of honey, put it right in.
Pay it back with a friend of mine when I get going again.
Right.
Yep.
It puts it in a good frame of mind. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so one of the other benefits of using this hive, how's our timing? So, are we good on time?
What time we got?
Okay. All right, so we'll finish this up real quick, and then if you have any questions and answers, what we'll do is
We can stay here for like another 15, 20 minutes. So.
and then we'll move back over to the bee and radio area. So, all right. So one other advantage of using this style of hive is that we can actually do a split inside the same hive body. Now you can't do that with the vertical hives. It's hard to do a split on those, but I'll show you how to do it here.
I'll just kind of go through what he's doing here. So this is a strong hive, and so what he's going to do at this point, he's putting in some more frames.
Okay. Strong hive. Yeah.
It's a strong hive, and he wants to kind of grow the hive. So what you're going to do at this point is essentially you got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and just kind of go that way, because basically you got your protein, brood, protein, honey, 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 honey. So at this point, what you can do is just go like a 1, 2.
So what we first do is we first move the entrance to the middle, get the bees used to going to the middle one. Then we do our 1, 2.
So you take, it's just like, when you count off like a game, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then the question is, so what about the queen? You're going to lose the queen, because at this point you would close the center hole, and you actually put another divider in there. So you actually need a second divider in here. But what's going to happen, if you just like the swarm, like when I had that swarm leave with me, now what's going to happen, these bees over here, if you happen, the queen's still here, the queen's still here. Great, they're going to keep going as business as normal. Over here, they're going to realize, oh no, the queen's missing. What am I going to do? Oh, we got to make another queen. So at that point, that's how you get a second hive going.
But they have everything they need to make a new queen. They have brood, they have protein, they have honey. So they can make new queens at this point. Also at this point, what you do is you close the center hole and you open the 2 outer holes.
And then the second colony steals all the honey from the first.
Say again?
And then the second colony steals all the honey from the first.
Well, no. Well, they should have enough. They should have enough. But the one side will actually realize that they don't have a queen after an hour or so, and then they will start making a new queen. Now the workers coming back, they'll be confused. They'll try to go to back to that center hole, and there'll be a 50-50 chance on which of the ones. It doesn't matter. They will naturally start to segregate out the 2 hives. Then, when you feel it, and it's like, oh, 95 degrees, they're making babies on both sides, then look at moving it to another hive. This is also a good way to also combine 2 hives as well. So if you have 2 weaker colonies, you can actually put the 2 colonies in, take one of the queens out, and then the colony that does not have, after a few hours, the colony will stop having those pheromones of the enemy queen, then you can actually recombine them. And so that may be better if you catch weaker swarms in the fall, you might combine them to make a bigger colony so that you can so that they have enough body heat to last throughout the winter.
You put another full divider.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We only have one divider with us.
I forgot to bring it. Not my bad.
But
So,
yeah, you want to do that because it keeps the space down.
That's what I thought, but I thought
yeah. So
they probably just don't
pretend
have
there's another
one to put in
divider
right
there.
now.
And once again, that's one of the problems with these vertical hives, because you add a section. I mean, they got sections that are, this is like a normal size section. They got another one. I think they called it super, but I can't remember for sure. Yeah, but basically you can put it on top. And this one here, this is like, you can go like, I think this hole here is like, keeps, no, this one here with the slots is designed, this needs to be tightened up better.
Queen excluder.
It's what they call a queen excluder, so your queen can't get through there. Now, on a vertical hive, which is maybe a benefit of a vertical hive, you can actually put like a plastic piece or a little thing here that's got like a slits in it, and what it does, it keeps the queen from going up. So when the bees are doing stuff, they're not going to do any brood up here. It's going to be nothing but honey. So that is maybe one benefit you can say of the vertical hive. Now, my hive was doing really, really great. It was growing. I had bees everywhere, and I put the super on it. And then come fall, when I started looking at it, I mean, I'd lift up the top and just check, make sure the bees were doing good. And they were doing great, and I saw them all in there, but they didn't do a single thing in the super. They did nothing up there. Basically, it was just wasted space.
So with our inspections, what do you do when you inspect this hive?
Basically, and I inspect this like, when you take a tool, because they will actually, these things will get glued down in here. I mean, they'll get in there tight. So you get the
Tool?
Yeah, we got the tool, I'm not sure. But it's like a little pry bar type thing. You take the pry bar, you kind of break one side. Once you break it side, you can start pulling out. And you're just looking for, what's going on. Like this one here, in this case, if you look at this hive here, there's a lot of stuff like this. So I really had more frames than I needed in this thing, more space. And you find other ones like this that are completely full, and it's amazing. When I looked this hive up, it was like full of honey one time. It was like about 70, 80 pounds. It was just amazing how heavy this was. You lift these things up, and there's a lot of weight to it. And that's how one way you can kind of tell. But that's how you can, and I would inspect it because we were looking at, because like I said, when I lost the queen, we pulled them up, each one. Okay, there's like honey. And in this vertical hive, we found the brood, but it wasn't as clean as a system like this.
Question. If you have multiple boxes and you want to inspect the bottom box, what do you do?
You got to move everything. And that's one thing nice thing because on this one, because you'll have like 3 sections tall, and this, you know, if you want to move the, you know, if you got 3 pieces like this, because that's what you do is you build it vertically, and the next thing that could be like 100 pounds. So one of these things with all the honey in there, it's not light, it's heavy, and also you're really disturbing the colony that way too, because when you start moving this stuff, I mean, bees are kind of funny. It's like I'd be messing with them a lot of times. I look at them and that kind of stuff, and you can actually do this. And they get a little mad at you, but if you're not sitting there, you know, swinging around and doing that kind of stuff, you just pull it up. Oh, this is the one that's got the brood on it. Just slide it back down, nice and easy, and they're pretty mellow. If you get natural bees or bees around here, the ones I find, they seem to be pretty mellow for the most part. At least the ones I got were all pretty mellow.
So if you notice the cover of this book, this is the original textbook. So I recommend this as a second book, not as a first book. The first book is Keeping Bees with a Smile. We have copies that are 27, 28 bucks. Also, if you look on YouTube, the Doug and Stacy channel, they have a lot of videos with Dr. Leo on it. If you notice this one, they're 2 young ladies, and they're not wearing any bee suits, and they're poking around the beehive. So, you know, if you didn't have a contractor coming in your house tearing everything up, you'd be a lot calmer too, right? So remember this, also on this, the most you're lifting with this, instead of lifting a whole box to do inspections, the maximum you're lifting here is 8 pounds of honey per frame. So if you're disabled or getting older like I am, or in a wheelchair or something like that, or even for a child, it's easier for a child to inspect their own hive.
And I have to add to that, just as a demonstration. I had the Langstroth, and you're right, the Propolis, I couldn't even inspect the bottom because I could not even get into there. You can't. Yeah.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, what she was saying is she was trying to inspect the hive, but it was so heavy she couldn't lift it. So, and that's one of the things we're talking about, because with the vertical hive, you'll have like 2 sections like this size, and you might have what they call a super section, or smaller. But these things, like I said, when this thing's full of honey and full of metal, full of honey and full of bees and the frames and the wood and everything.
And then they're all glued together.
Yeah.
And then they have the Propolis, so you're actually, really.
Yeah, if you look, where's the lid for that? But if you look at this, I mean, you can actually look around the edge. Actually, I've had times I was trying to take this apart because I had like the cleaning extruder on here, and you got to take the little pry apart just to get it apart sometimes. They really glue the thing together. Where on this one system here, if you look, everything's tight. The bees can't get in the top section here, so they won't glue the lid down to the box.
Yeah. Do you what style of hive do you use now, or do you?
I just my Langstroth. We had 5 at one time, and then just all the problems, and not being able to maintain them as well, and the big thing was the moisture.
Yeah.
Get in, and then, so I would like to get more.
Yeah. So you can actually order them from Dr. Leo. There's an apiary in Weston, and they bought 100 of these from Dr. Leo. Of course, they overloaded their trailer and brought it to Missouri. But this is all homemade. All the frames, everything's homemade. And back to building community. I wasn't a woodworker. I'm learning bit by bit. Finally, my dad's teaching me how to do stuff. He thought, oh, this is a good project. Let's do this. So, and that's what we're doing, is we're trying to find local woodworkers that can sponsor hosting events like this, where you come, you fellowship, they're taught all the different kinds of talk and gathering and prepping things. It's like, oh, I'm doing this, but I'm needing help with my garden. Oh, I'll help you with your garden. Or it's like really trying to build that permaculture community, right? That's something that's vibrant, something that a lot of people talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. So having people come 2 times, kind of pay it forward, donate the labor.
Yeah. Because I got kind of involved with Michael because I like this system and stuff after I got my Langstroth style, and actually went to a place where we got like in Tonganoxie. We went to Tonganoxie, had a build where we made about 3 of these, because you take 4 sheets of plywood, and I think I mentioned earlier, and you look at the plans, you can get 3 hives, 3 complete hives. That's not counting the frames, which is the hive itself. And then later on, I think it was March of this year, early March, and we had to build at my house. See, I'm kind of a woodworker. I do a lot of woodworking. Yeah, around the Topeka area. So, and we're trying to expand that, and I got somebody else I'm talking to, maybe even talking about going to Clay Center sometime and doing like a build out there sometime to keep this thing, because he's wanting to get some hives and stuff going. So, reach out to like Michael or myself, and we'll be more than happy to sit there and try to help. Because the more we do, the more honey is around there, and the more natural it is, the better it is for everybody. And plus, it helps build community.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So, all right, any other questions here?
Say it loud, I didn't hear you.
Do any of the books have dimensions? So that
Yes.
you can build your own?
Yep. So the plans are on Dr. Leo's website. I have a QR code. I can give you the link. No problem. All that is, he has very precise measurements. So
He'll be down to the 32nd of an inch on some of these measurements. So yeah.
kind of crazy.
If you do woodworking, 30 seconds, like, yeah, really?
Well, I was going to say that the separator board, trying to make it a little smaller, because once you get Propolis in there, it's going to take up room also. So we're
Yeah.
trying to
So
put it in
so this is according to his specs on 3 seconds. And we have to shave down on a few of them because, of course, they're homemade. So they have some of them are a little bit special. Like on this one, we chipped out some of the entrance, so I'm gonna have to take some wood putty and try to fill that back in, so that middle entrance can be completed. But yeah, so we've really enjoyed this. If you don't know any woodworking skills, you get to learn how to use different kinds of things. You get to learn how to glue things. I use narrow crown staplers, and this was a lifesaver. T50 stapler, cheap, but man, it is so worth it. Anything else on the building?
And once again, all the plans, I know Larry over there was asking about the plans. Dr. Leo has done a fantastic job. He's got even prints or blueprints for making these jigs. So you don't have to, sit there and try to invent the wheel. You can actually go on the website, look at the plans, and like I said, we're all trying to build the community, build the bees, get them, better populations. So that's what we're trying to do. We're not in it just for ourselves. We're in it for the community.
I want community.
Is this the only plan he's got?
No. He also has plans for the what's the other book?
He's got plans for the swarm. He's also got a couple different styles of this. But this is like his favorite because from his experience, this one works the best.
So he does have traditional lay-ins hive, which is what this book shows. But he also has swarm traps for the Langstreth. He also has plans for the jigs. He has plans for the 2 different kinds of swarm traps. One you can overwinter a swarm in. This one you can't. The stands. Yeah. So there's a lot of different plans.
One thing I do, I take like number 10 coffee cans, the big ones, put on the legs, put water in there, that way they can't climb in.
That's a great idea.
And that's one thing I think I already mentioned, but you'll get beetles. One thing about trees, I think especially like pine trees, they got beetles. They'll get in there in the hives, and the bees will try to get rid of them, and sometimes they'll actually encapsulate them in propolis. But if you could just keep that stuff from happening, so yes, if you put what you're mentioning, that's a good way of keeping ants and that kind of stuff from coming up there, because I had a problem in my hive. I started having ants, so I did some remediation to get rid of the ants or keep them from getting in the hive.
And if you do that when you set it up, it's a lot easier trying to...
Yeah. Instead of jacking up and doing that.
And this is
some places that are better or best for putting your hive. I've understood that there are some people who started beekeeping, but because there were so many farms around them, that they ended up with no hive.
That's a great question. The question was, where would you place your hives? So these hives, because a lot of us are around croplands or ranch lands and things like that. So Dr. Leo actually got his PhD from the University of Missouri-Columbia in agroforestry. So he had his neighbors come, and he begged them not to do ranching on their land. So they spent a lot of money clearing the timber. They spent a lot of money preparing the land. They spent a lot of money on cattle, and then they went bankrupt. And that could have been avoided if they just listened to him. They could have made more money from the bees, from the natural beekeeping. Because on the honey side, if you're doing it all by hand, if you're doing it all natural, if you're not feeding them sugar, you can command a higher price for your honey. Now, if you're near a cropland, you know, the people I got the wool for this hive, they had 6 of the Langstroth beehives. The crop manager didn't tell them. There was a new crop manager, and they killed all 6 of their hives because of the overspring. So you do have to be careful about that.
A lot of times, if you let your co-op know, they'll let, but still, I've lost hives to drift. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have control over that. Plus, the chemical no-till farming that they're doing, it kills a lot of their, since they're killing the crop,
Yeah.
a lot of their food sources are gone.
Yeah. So there's also other issues of you also don't want to have them too close together. So not like with a commercial apiary where they put all these beehives in the truck. With the commercial beekeepers like that, even the hives, even the colonies that are not sick, they treat every colony as if it's sick. Because what happens is a colony that's sick, the bee will come out and then it'll drift to the next hive, and now you have a second hive that's sick, and then that bees will drift over to the next hive. So you want to try to keep these, have a little bit more space. Dr. Leo recommends about 100 feet, but even in his apiary, they're like 20, 30 feet apart, but the entrances are all different locations, all different directions. Another thing is because the bees coming back are seeing black and white, if you paint different patterns on the front, and you can actually see some of the patterns that his kids have made on their beehives, the bees will actually see that and go, oh, that's my home. So there's less possibility of that drift. I think it's, 1 acre of like flowers per hive. There's a few rule of thumbs. We're still beginning beekeepers, so we don't have all the answers, but we're learning every day how to do things better. So, that's all that really matters. So.
And once again, the reason I want to mention that is that's the reason I wanted to mention community, because it comes back to the community. You get people, oh, I did this, or I did this, and this worked really well, or this really bombed. That's why you have your community, and that's one thing. That's one thing we're trying to promote is the community of beekeepers. We're not trying to promote, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of money off my honey for me. No, it's more, I'm going to make money off my honey, but I'm going to help this guy and get more bees and stuff going. So it's the community, because one thing I noticed, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy this community so much, is I've talked to people and I've learned a lot of different things, from everything from handling firearms to taking care of plants, or making a new planting a new shrub from a people got like those root starters and that kind of stuff. So much knowledge in this community, and we're just going to be a portion of the community. But yes, I'm pushing community.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be around. Please come and look at things. Please come and smell the propolis. I leave one on my desk so I can take a hit every day. It smells so good.
Bet you never thought you'd come to a prepper event where someone asked you to smell their propolis. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Michael and the Todd. The next events are going to be the children's event, 12:45. Over here by the picnic tables is going to be the blanket challenge. And our next adult class is at 1:30 with Don Gorman. Until then, enjoy your lunch. See our vendors. They support us. See the food truck. They support us. And have a good time. Thanks for coming. Do you want me to turn these off since we're using again until 1:30?
You may split over winter, because if you have a second divider board, it actually
You turn these things off,
and so it'd be coming up and out. Right. But because they're generating heat here and generating heat here, now they're combining the heat. So they're insulated, so you have a pillow here, you have a pillow here. So, I think you can. What I've heard is that if you face it to like a fence, give them to a fence, what they'll do is they'll naturally climb and go above people's heads out. That way people are not. Because you don't want to work in front, then in and out. Right. So you want to work on the back side.
I gotta go pick up Autumn.
So even with there's a different kind of lid. So if you look at this lid, it's just an attic, right? And then these holes are drilled so shed water outside. There's also a peak, so if you have like a heavy snowfall, it may be better. Some people like the design better too, where it's a peak roof, but then it has a piano hinge, and you open it, so you don't even have to lift this. It sits and it has chains, and you just open it. So you know, look at the Doug and Stacy channel on YouTube. Watch the Dr. Leo video. Yeah. So
And this really isn't hard to do. If you got any kind of woodworking out, it's really not hard. The hardest part is actually the
I don't see any reason why not.
What stopped me from doing it was just, well, the yard is small.
You have a place right?
My house, I put this backyard. The neighbors are mowing the yard, and, you know, where the kids are on the other side of the fence hollering. And then I'm in trouble because the neighbor got sprayed.
Right. So there's always liability issues and things like that. But there are, like in Kansas City, there's actually, there's like urban gardens and stuff, and so gardeners go in and teach inner city usually how to garden. There's also inner city beekeeping as well. So what I'd like to do is to, once I get more experience, and so the standard American beekeepers will listen to me. Yeah, I got 5 hives, I got 20 hives. It's this style. Well, easier to manage. I like to see about joining them and trying to produce these kinds of hives. And also, woodworking. It's fun. We have Topeka, Tonganoxie, Lee Summit, Calville, Missouri, Eaglesville, Missouri. I'm going down to Springfield in a month. I'm going to Arkansas. Sounds like I'm going to Nebraska. I'm talking to the Nebraska guys over there. So we're taking kind of to show up the road. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. Absolutely. We have a Telegram, a National Beekeeping Telegram channel. And that's our main source right now. I'll just put the website there. I have time now, so I can do that over the next couple of weeks. All my cards are there.
You saw it, but you're just
Make sure you smell the propolis.
you're like 3 sites over.
Dr. Leo's. Yeah. This is the caulking that the bees gather the sap together from the trees. So this is from Dr. Leo. It's heavenly.
I think I've read that even increases fuel hormones. I do know that the kinetic energy from the bees
Well, bees naturally fly about 3 miles. So what Dr. Leo's done is he's actually bought land around him, so actually he's made his own reservation area. That's why he can sell this honey at $80 a pound. Normally, what's the going rate for a local beekeeper?
Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think. Salina has several new ones that started out because they can't say anything. So they have like probably for, a honey bear, about $10 to $11.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's pretty good.
We just go local, and that's pretty good.
That's pretty good, right, yeah.
But he sells his for $80, $90 a pound. So worth several pounds. There's a guy that does this kind of hive, the standard Lance hive in Vermont, and he has it's a couple hundred, and it's a solo operation. And his highest poundage was 35,000 pounds in a year. So essentially, honey, pollen, pollen, honey, theirs. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically you got 13 frames, 8 pounds per frame, times 13. Yeah. So and if it's going like gangbusters, you might need to some of the frames here you might need to take out, shove them down, and put open, process them and then put them back. Remember, it takes 8 times the amount of energy to make wax than it does to make honey. So you want to save that wax as much as you can. The only wax that he destroyed is from the old root comb. So he'll move the skin off of the new comb, take the old stuff. That's full of pollen, honey, and everything. And then he puts it in a big cider press, kind of thing, squeezes it out, and it's called Beehive. When he was young, in Russia, his mother was a pharmacist. He teaspoon of bee bread every morning. An 8-ounce jar of that has more pollen in it than $1,000 of commercial honey. Of course, he sells it for like 800 or sorry, 80 bucks or so. He sells it, so he had to raise his prices. And there's a lady that's on a fixed income and apologized to her to raise prices. Don't worry, it's a good value for what it is. So she takes it and it helps with the allergies. It's also a probiotic. It's also we might give him honey as beef for the eating competition. Yeah, yesterday. So, but I'm pretty excited about this. When I sat, because I did a top bar hive before and I bought a package. When I listened to Dr. Leo, I was like, oh my gosh, not using a package would have helped me. Not doing a top bar would have helped me out too, because I wanted to do more natural, but the only system I saw was a top bar, so I built a top bar.
Doing a lot of research.
It didn't do well at all. So, because it's more suited for South Africa.
Brian.
So,
Our Brian.
Oh, Brian. Okay.
So, but knowing people thinks now, oh yeah, they really do need a starter strip.
I'd recommend going online.
We do. The wires are not just used as the comb. The comb is self-supporting. It's when you spin it out.
We texted him
It
and
needs
everything,
the
so
comb.
we should be
Right,
careful
it's
with
the comb
that.
Yeah, no, I'd recommend just get it from
So if you're
And actually, if you
have
put
the
in
community,
the
then you can buy a $500 spinner
one,
and share it, right?
Yeah, we don't, just deserve some gravity drain because we didn't want to pay for it.
Exactly. Now it's a good value because you actually sell it for the same amount you bought it for. So, especially the Italian ones. But yeah, so back to, the bee bread. And so he wanted that taste for his children here in the United States. And so he could not find bee bread from the American beekeepers because he put in miticide and that accumulates within brood areas. So, and that's where he gets the bee bread from. Of course, that has the royal jelly, propolis, royal jelly, everything is in here. So we'll keep that as natural as possible. So he started doing this natural beekeeping so he could give his children a taste of that bee bread every day. His child. So, he's a really good guy. I took his class in rural Missouri. It was very excellent. All his children helped. they sang Russian songs, they fed us Russian food, and of course they had a big pile of bee bread, and I ate a little too much, I got a little flush, because it's like too many vitamins, right? Get a little vitamin flush.
Yeah, actually,
It's not hard to do. There's a lot of pieces you kind of have to put together. If you have experienced woodworkers, you can start doing this. So, and I'll help out too. I have dogs and camper. I will travel, and so. Say?
To me, this would be more difficult to make.
Yeah, because you have to. My dad does them. So right now we're buying the pieces for my dad. He's retired. He gets bored and he just turns it out, right? So.
And the reason why I do that is when you water, you can cut into the wood.
I see. So
That's not the problem. No, typically, I mean, actually, it's somewhat beneficial in the fact that they get some of the other, I have got mines and things in there, and so they can be helpful keeping but you will see them, other beekeepers have chickens around.
Herman Patch's farm, they had a big they were about to run the chicken homes and start here.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, interesting enough, you can sell.
Down here.
Chickens will come away, really.
It's like right.
Oh, gosh,
It's like they work together.
Yeah. So it is a blending thing. Kind of like when you do the permaculture, regenerative agriculture, cows, sheep, chickens, right? That way, just put, so kind of blends it together, synergy. You can't sell everything out of a beehive, so you can sell dead bees. There's a market for dead bees. There's a market for the wax moth. Don't ask me why. I don't want to know. There are certain websites I never go to.
You'd be surprised, Chinese medicine.
So the dead bees, the propolis.
When milk's gone into it.
So if you have strong queens, what you can do is you can actually take those queen cells. So what the queen does is, so when the queens in their cocoons and
they'll be on that part first. It's already
queen
based.
sacs, queen
Oh, gosh.
And they like this
cells,
stuff
the
a
queen
lot.
cells.
Yeah.
The first queen that comes out,
They're bigger.
so they're bigger and they're kind of, what they do is they don't sit in here. This is more of a brood and a honey size. The drones are a little bit bigger, the males. But the queens are like, they sit on the side as like a little cocoon. And there's several of them. You're talking about the queen cells?
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens is,
That's what was causing
queen cells? Queen cells? Is that right? Okay.
I mean, there might be another.
There might be a technical, I don't know, I'm still beginner. So what happens is, when there's several queens, the first queen that comes out, she'll start calling her sisters, and because she has a straight barb, or straight stinger, she'll go and she'll kill all the other queens. So, and that's why the Africanized bees are progressing from South America, is that the Africanized queens hatch a day earlier than normal. So the genetics go one way, not the other way, right? So what you can do is you can actually cut those pieces out and actually create nukes, what standard beekeepers call nukes, and then give them that queen a frame of brood and bees, and put them back into a trap or into a nuke box. Then you can actually sell that as a service. And there's a lot of beekeepers that can make as much money selling queens as they can selling honey. Yeah, go underneath. In the wintertime, they're not going to build. So it's okay if they wander out. You could do a tack or just something. Okay. So or like just a leafy frame, just to support it. Yeah. That won't interfere with air. No, that won't. But just something there, just beekeeping. You're right. Yeah. It was like, you know, in reality, just went click.
Yeah, well, when I started looking at doing bees for like mainly for garden, I was like, of course, everything you look up goes straight to this.
Yeah.
But then I found those on YouTube. I saw the that shit stuff, and I saw this, and I was like, wow, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like this is so elegant in the design.
It's like a fallen tree, right?
Yeah, it's exactly like a fallen tree in a way. Yeah, like a hollow here, but you know, you're not having to stack it. There's no heavy lifting.
This is it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's designed to be off the
So
ground.
I just caught for him last week, and I put him into a hive. So hopefully, when I get back home Sunday, Monday, first thing I'm gonna do is check to see if they're still there.
Yeah, like I know, like Angela and Garrett, they had bees, and they got. I don't know if they got killed by spray or by neglect. I think it was by spray.
I think it was by spray. I know they do a lot of fly sprays, fly over sprays.
And I'm concerned about that.
Hot testing.
Yeah.
I really am concerned about that. I don't know. But spring, so the south wind dominant this time of year. And that will, so the field I'm concerned about is the north. So probably the time of year that they would be spraying something, it won't be coming mine on my property.
See, that's the only.
But I don't know.
Right.
They have to verify that.
Everything's repurposed laptop charger.
Laptop charger, just to heat the wires.
To heat the wires to melt the wax out.
Nice. Nice.
Well, yeah.
All right.
We got piles of work that just go in the trash. I need to save a couple.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see. You got,
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I'd be more happy to.
So we have this one. We have that one onto the four-wheeler side to side behind here.
Behind here?
Oh, okay.
So they were showing.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's like some of the posts in our records that say that there's, sensitive records that only certain people. I did work in planning for a 09 before, and maybe Admiral.
There's nothing.
I don't know, I have to call him and talk to him. I didn't
There's
really-
no vehicle.
Oh, there's no vehicle over there? You said it was behind.
Oh, maybe he meant behind the other way.
I called him. So I had to clarify something, I can't remember.
There's a trailer.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, I was just, sorry I haven't got back with you, Ken, but I've been busy, and I was out flying my Piper's airplane this morning. I've just been doing this, that, and the other thing, and then then he started telling me about his sister, and then I looked at his ranch, and I was like, oh. So I talked to this guy that was a B9, and he was like, do you know who that guy was? And I was like, not really. I mean, he's nice. Yeah, but he's like, nah, he's like basically like the 3-star or something. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he's a super nice guy. I'm just trying to get his stuff done. He's like, the only reason why I called this village thing is my wife keeps yelling at me all the time because he can't hear, because he's a pilot.
Not hurting for money, it's just like.
Oh yeah, he's like, you know how much that guy makes in retirement money? I was like, no. He's like, yeah, he probably makes like $13,000 at least. He doesn't need no disability.
Hopefully, shortly, I worked with him at Work Street. He had retired, Bill Terry retired, he retired post office on. Civil service. Civil service. Yeah. And he's at Wolf Creek, and he's just getting ready to retire. He's getting his third retirement. He's getting his third retirement. He's going to retire, like October, and they came out with an early retirement plan. So they paid him a bunch of money and gave him benefits to keep him until he turned 65 or 70. Paid his insurance until then, and he had. He done some investing along the way, man. He told us why that she couldn't spend his income. That's not something you want to tell your wife. Right, yeah.
Oh, she's like, oh, bad, I can try.
Hold my beer, right?
Hold my beer.
He was a super guy. He was a flight holder on the submarine that my two brothers and I were. Yeah. He's coming back, I think.
Yeah, he's bringing the side-by-side for this.
and on alert, and we were trying to deal with
I was gonna get here.
we're silent, down hidden, we have 100 miles of moves every day to be hidden.
Oh, yeah?
And,
Be surface and then try to.
we surface and helicopters just have to be there because we're the only ones that know, and we try to get this guy out.
Oh, no.
So
What's up?
we're still covered in missile package.
Yeah.
We're on alert.
You have a cup with you?
Yeah.
I think we just dumped some new ice over here in your guys' cooler.
After that, we can't get handled. We open that door, the superstructure, you have the pressure opens up, the superstructure opens, roughly 50.
Yeah, force damage all the way through making heat.
Yeah. Okay.
I even went and priced all the material at the hardware store.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I was like, I should make some of these, and then I was like, I don't have the tools and the facilities for this.
Exactly.
And I don't have. I was like, maybe I won't.
No,
do
we
that
got it.
now.
I think we are gonna need to move some of these chairs out of the way so we can get in here. How heavy is it? Can we carry it outside the tent?
Yeah.
Maybe put another chair on here.
Oh, there's two pieces.
No, yeah, 2 pieces. Yeah.
Got it? Yeah. You lead, I'll follow. You're prettier than me anyway.